Hi, and welcome to Prepping Essentials.
Good morning, it's 6 o'clock on Saturday the 23rd of April. Just making my way down to the land, and as always, not quite sure what we're going to get done today, but let's find out. Well, here we are down the land. It's a bit of a cool and breezy morning this morning. Sun is trying to peek out over those trees, but yeah, there's a brisk breeze. Grass is starting to look a little bit on the long side. I suspect it won't be long before we're giving it a trim and, as usual, topping up. So, a few things to bring down from the car this morning. If it wasn't for this bit of wind, it would be a nice day. You can tell it's coming from the east. It's got that little cool nip in the air. I suspect we might need a bit of heat on this morning. Big difference from last weekend, weather-wise. Anyway, let me get myself in the cabin, get opened up. I can hear the cockerel crowing already. Sort the chickens out and we'll have a little chat. Well, first things first, as usual, sort the chickens out. And as usual, little red ones here pecking around at my hand, demanding attention. They are funny. She's getting all protective now, the other red ones come along. You'd think they hadn't been fed, you really would. Come on then, girls. You see her pushing the other one out. You're a bully. Look. Oh dear. Right, let me get sorted out in the coop. Pick the eggs up. We'll get in the cabin and get a coffee on. Well, I'm just going to top the food and water up. Empty. It's nice to see the egg production's back online again. 11 eggs, it's 2 days worth. So we're back to 5 or 6 a day. Bit of mess to clean up, but nothing dramatic. Let me get the food and water sorted, and we'll go in the cabin for a chat. Well, good morning. It's the weekend again. A cool weekend this weekend. Completely different to last weekend, when the afternoon we were seeing some really high temperatures. The sun is trying to get out above the trees there, but there's a little bit of patchy cloud around. We've had a little bit of rain this week overnight, on a couple of nights. It's good because it keeps the water barrels topped up, which is what you want. It's going to be interesting to see what happens this year. You might remember, long-time viewers, last year it was a bit of a struggle. We had a bit of a heat wave through the summer, and it just kept going and going and going. I put some extra water tanks in, so hopefully this year, even if we do get a prolonged period of no rain, we should be okay. Talking about okay, thanks to people who've commented on the videos, wishing me well with my my COVID experience. I'm coming out of the other end of it now. Tested negative last couple of days. I can still feel it, and you might be able to hear it. I've still got a little bit of a bunged up nose, bit of a throat, and tiredness really has been the main thing. Pretty much everything I've been doing for the last, 8 days, 9 days, I've been feeling more tired than usual. But fingers crossed, hopefully that's it now. We can get back to business as usual, though I won't be doing anything particularly energetic this weekend. I'll potter, I think. A lot of tidying up to do. Want to get some more planting done. I am very tempted to take Little Red Tractor out for a run around the field. I don't know, we'll see. As usual, we'll make it up as we go along, but this past week or so, we've been making up less things to do rather than more things to do. Hopefully we'll be back on track shortly. Anyway, I digress as usual. Things going on in the big wide world, pretty much business as usual. It's a repetition of last week and the week before. Biggest news really is, or mainstream media news I should say, is the ongoing issue with Russia and Ukraine. It will definitely have an impact this year. The media aren't completely wrong when they suggest that this military conflict will have an impact on food prices. Not so much energy prices. If you're in mainland Europe, yes, absolutely for sure. The sanctions on Russia are having a huge effect on the energy market in mainland Europe. There is no escaping that. But then sanctions have for a while. But food particularly, yes, there will be definitely an impact as we go through this year, which adds to the global problems that we've been having with food for the last couple of years now. COVID had an impact, weather's had an impact. We've discussed it endlessly in lots of different videos. But astute viewers might notice that I popped a comment on the community tab on YouTube and also on Facebook about cooking oil, and the fact that here in the UK, don't know what it's like in other countries, you have to let me know, apart from prices going through the roof, we're now starting to see restrictions on availability. There's quite a few supermarkets. I'll pop a little picture in the video for those who haven't seen it on the community tab. Supermarkets here in the UK have started restricting the amount of sunflower and other vegetable cooking oils that you can buy in the supermarkets. So is this the start and a sign of things to come as we progress through the rest of this year and into next? Because the impacts we're feeling now, even though some people say there isn't one, what food shortage, the impacts we feel now, bear in mind that's just the start. It does take a while for the impact of any disruption on supply chain to feed its way through the supply chain and eventually into the supermarket where you do your shopping, or other shops depending on where it is you're buying. It does take a while to filter through, and I suspect we are now seeing the evidence in the local supermarkets. It's not a one-off. There's a couple of articles being published over the last few days, and again I'll pop some screenshots into the video for you to take a look at. But world food prices in general, they're at a 30-year high. For lots of things, it's actually more than a 30-year high. But just a couple of stats that I kind of plucked out of those news articles. In general, world food prices took a big spike in March, and they're now, year on year, 33.6% up on March 2021. Now that's a big jump in a year, 33%. So all of this talk about 7% inflation or 9% inflation, whichever country it is that you happen to live in, it is clearly nonsense. The figures are massively being manipulated to try and reduce the shock and awe. It's a George Bush phrase. Reduce the shock and awe on you and me, the consumer. It's a bit like the transitory inflation remarks that were being put out during COVID when all of this started to really become newsworthy. it's definitely not transitory. This is going to be going on for a long time yet. And as I say, we are just really seeing the start of it. So 33.6% up in the space of a year. If you add that to all the other price increases, cost of home energy for cooking, heating, hot water, electricity, the cost of fuel, energy for your vehicles, price of petrol and diesel or gas, massive price rises, and I suspect it won't be long before we start to see some quite significant unrest, grumbling, call it what you will, from members of the public. There has been some, particularly around the cost of vehicle fuel, but again, we're in the early stages. In terms of picking out a few different items, I mentioned cooking oil, and I put that post in the community tab. Vegetable oil in the space of a year up 23%, sugar in the space of a year up 20%, dairy products in the space of a year up 26%, wheat, which has been mentioned a few times in the media, connected with the Russia-Ukraine crisis, because both Russia and Ukraine are big producers. In 1 month, between February and March, wheat prices increased by 20%. So it's going to be interesting to see, because these kind of raw commodity prices that I'm talking about now, these price hikes in basic commodities, it's not just if you're going out to buy a bag of sugar or a bottle of vegetable oil or a bag of flour where you're going to notice the increase. The increase is going to be all the way through all of the food production and supply chain, because these products are used in lots and lots of different things. Sugar's used in pretty much everything. Vegetable oils, again, pretty much everything. Wheat and other grains, again, are used in pretty much everything. It's not just for baking bread. It's across the whole spectrum of food. So the food prices and availability, massive increases in price and decreases in availability. And we're only in April. So lots more of that to come. So when I keep banging on about food and start growing your own and start stocking up on long-term food stores, it is for a valid reason. The evidence is there out in not just the mainstream media, because they have their own slant on things, but in general business, the business world, they're not talking about this for no reason. They're talking about it and publicising it to let you know that shock and awe is coming to your grocery bills, and to the availability of stuff that you might want to buy this year and rolling on into next year. In the cabin chat last week, I kind of touched on the theme of back in the olden days and how things were done differently then. So as a kind of follow on from that, and connected with the food prices that I've just been talking about, and this possibility that we're starting to see rationing in some items, it's worth reflecting, because I remember back in the day, I sound so old when I say that, and it sounds like a bit of a cliche, but it's true. We didn't have vegetable oil when I was growing up as a kid. If you wanted to do cooking, you used lard or dripping. We didn't have all of this huge range of different vegetable oils, you know, your sunflower, your rapeseed, your olive oils, all of these things. All right, perhaps olive oil, but it was a niche product back then, something that rich people had. So we didn't. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, think of alternatives. If there is going to be a shortage of something, if the price rises mean that you can no longer afford to buy something, then why not start thinking now about alternatives? I've put a couple of videos out over the years on alternatives. Milk springs to mind. I don't imagine that we're going to see huge shortages in milk because, particularly the UK, we produce an awful lot of it. We might see price hikes. Well, we are seeing price hikes, but I don't think there'll be a shortage. But just in case, there are alternatives. You can make milk out of oats or rice. You can make it out of almonds, but that's a bit of a long, expensive, tedious process. But oat milk is quite cheap and easy to do, and rice milk likewise. Alternatives to the vegetable oils for cooking, go back to basics, buy lard. I don't imagine that lard will be in short supply any day soon, and if it was, or if it was suddenly unaffordable for you, then you can take the fat from the meat that you buy or the meat that you're hunting and use that. Think about alternatives. Again, last week I touched on the subject of seasonal foods. So again, use that as an alternative. If some foods are not in season, then look for an alternative. There are ways and means of getting around these problems, because over the course of decades, hundreds of years, going back into history, before we had the convenience of global supply chains and massive supermarkets, that's what people did. They lived seasonally according to what was available in their area at that time, and they did substitute one product for another when it wasn't available. We didn't have this mentality of I must have this available to me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We didn't have that mentality back then. So food for thought, if you'll excuse the pun. Think about alternatives, but more importantly, and I do keep saying it all the time, stock up while it's available and it's affordable. Put aside your long-term supplies to get through however long this rough period might turn out to be, and try and source your own. Try and plant some seeds, grow some food, hunt, forage for food, as a way of getting you through whatever hard times might be coming at us down the line. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to drink this coffee and start trying to achieve something out of the day. Wherever I am up to, I'll keep you posted as we go through the video. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you are staying safe and well and enjoying your weekend. Make a point this weekend of setting aside some me time for yourself, and perhaps having a little think about the topics that have been discussed in the cabin chat and in previous cabin chats. What can you do to make your life more resilient? Because for sure, it's not just me saying it now, it's becoming mainstream. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, mainstream news media, business articles, even, God forbid, government announcements. Things are going to become more difficult as we go through this year and into next. So take advantage of the time you have now and the opportunity you have now to do something to prepare yourself for that. I'll catch you all later in the video. Well, it wouldn't be the weekend without the greenery for the chickens, so they're quite content pecking away. It's a grey old day and that breeze is still bloody cool. I had the diesel heater on this morning just to take the edge off while I had the cabin chat with you. Got a few more bags of compost that I've brought down. They can go to add to the little supply I brought down earlier in the week. Definitely need to get some planting. I'll give you a run round the raised beds in a minute. I am really pleased with these fruit trees. They're coming on really early. I'm praying that we don't have a repeat of last year where we had that late April frosts, because these are really pretty, well in bloom. And it's nice to see the growth that they're putting on. It's a bit of a time-consuming exercise, growing trees. They're going to outlive me, unfortunately, but it's really nice to see. And this one in particular I can't resist showing you this one because it is particularly beautiful. Let's take a little look at that. How pretty is that? Eh? Really, really pretty. Bees are having a bit of a congregation on the entrance to the hive this morning. I'm surprised to see them out this early in the morning because that wind is biting. I wonder if that's some kind of way of regulating the temperature inside the hive and just keeping the draft out. If Simon's watching, maybe he can tell me. Anyway, I've got to stop digressing and going off on these little tangents. Let me get myself sorted out and we'll have a run round, see what's happening with the planting and hopefully do a bit more planting. Well, let's have a little run round, see what we've got going on. Garden room, that bed's completely empty. But I will be doing something to fill that up shortly. All the trees and bushes doing really well. Real nice growth on this fig tree. And the blueberries this year are going absolutely crazy. Really early flowering on all of these bushes. They've all got flowers. Even the youngest one has got an endless supply of flowers. So hopefully we're going to get lots of berries on those. Good growth on the fruit trees. This one's actually flowered and flowers are dying back now. At some point, as the weather warms up, these can go back outside and they can just sit behind the polytunnel for a wee while. And the last blueberry bush also already putting out flowers and hopefully lots of berries to come. Let's go and brave the elements outside. It's a disappointing day. I thought by now it might have started to warm up a little bit, but clearly not. The wind is very, very cool. These whiskey barrel planters, I put some potatoes in there. Don't know if it was 2 weeks ago now. I think it was. I've just been covering these up. Something's been digging around in these, but we have got potatoes coming through, so that's a good sign. Evidence of I'm suspecting it's birds rather than anything else, but we are getting growth. Potatoes are coming through, and similarly this one, you can see where they've been picking at the shoots. There, bloody birds. But we've still got growth coming through here, which is nice to see. Raised beds. You remember I filled this with onions and they're all coming through now. Distinct rows all the way down through the centre and the far end. Some really, really nice encouraging growth on these. Bit of weeding required, as there is on pretty much all of these beds. Mixing this one of garlic and onions, but again you can see all of the onions coming in their rows. Again, some weeding to be done. The garlic's putting on major spurts of growth. Lots and lots of garlic come through. The extra chicken wire seems to be doing the trick. No sign of any activity on these beds from the rabbits. So strawberries coming on well and flowering. No sign yet of the sweet corn coming through, but it is still very early. I'm guessing another week or two perhaps before we see any signs of growth, and hopefully that'll be just timed right to avoid if we do get any late frosts. Judging by the weather today, I'm suspecting we're going to. And these trees equally doing nicely. Very pleased with these. Get them through this year and they can perhaps go out and be planted along that wooded area. Again, strawberries flowering, very nice to see. mixed results really inside the polytunnel. I don't know whether it's temperature or whether it's seeds, but I've had to do succession planting in the seed trays, as you know. Carrots doing well. The second batch of carrots are now starting to sprout. Very, very small. Don't know if you'll spot them or not on the video, but you can see them coming through. And I've got some buckets lined up ready to fill. We'll definitely be doing that today. Potatoes, all of the potatoes now, including the last one I did, are all through. Really nice growth. I'm hoping the temperature inside the polytunnel is sufficient and we don't get any frost damage. Massive growth on this one. Absolutely huge. Not so great with the seed trays. There's still no signs of activity in these seed trays that I planted up. The cucumber and tomato in that one, I think. No, it's not. What we got? Yeah, beetroot, cabbage in this one. That must be Sweden cauliflower. It is Sweden cauliflower in that one. So no signs yet in there. And likewise these other trays. No signs of activity in these either. I'm thinking this is temperature because there's a big variety of different seeds. And no signs yet. Don't know what's up with that bucket of potatoes. For some reason, we've only got that one big shoot that's come through. Strange that that one isn't doing as well as the others. But hey, you know, you can't complain. We have got growth. And you really don't know with potatoes. You can get a huge amount of growth like that in that bucket, and then when you lift it, you find that there's not much inside. This one might surprise us. We'll find out in due course. Anyway, loads and loads and loads of empty containers. Can you hear the wind on this polytunnel? Loads of containers that need filling up. So I'll get myself in the cabin, grab my seed potatoes that I've been overwintering, drag those out, get some seeds planted, particularly carrots, bit of weeding to do outside, lots of little jobs to be done. It's a bit cool out here, but jobs need doing. And try and keep the weed under control around these raised beds and inside the raised beds. The good thing is there's some nice dandelion, clover and grass in amongst the thistles that will come in for the chickens and give them a bit of extra greenery. So it's a win-win. Clear the beds and feed the chickens. This weeding might seem like a bit of a non-job, but if I do it early and regularly, it'll help. Rather than my plants got all of the the water and nutrition out of the beds rather than the weeds. An amazing amount. The more you look, the more you find. Well, despite it threatening rain, I don't think it's going to, so I've just run round and given these barrels a bit of a water. You can see the potatoes pushing through now, probably a little bit clearer than you did on the other video. Been round, cleared out all the weeds and rubbish out of the raised beds and from around the outside of the raised beds. I've got a bit of grass in there. How's that got in there? It's probably flicked in when I put the cover back on. It's better. Yeah, looking a lot tidier. And again, you can probably see the onions coming through better now that I've cleared out all the rubbish. Look at all these garlic. Oh, walkers on the bridleway. Can't see them though because all the trees are in leaf now, which is nice. So all the beds cleared out, looking very nice. And I've got a huge barrow full of an assortment of dandelions, grass, chickweed, clover, thistles, you name it, it's all in there. So that's going to the chickens. That'll keep them out of mischief while I busy myself in the polytunnel. Well, the chickens are going crazy now. Put all that grass in there. They don't know which bit to start with first. That should keep them busy for a while. Well, I've got lots of empty buckets in the polytunnel. And I've got lots of compost. So let's get filling some buckets and some seed trays up. Brought a selection of seeds into the polytunnel. Also got some potatoes. So next few hours it's going to be planting. Trying to do a bit of a mixture in these buckets, different kinds of compost. Trying a new one here that's got some seaweed in. Not quite sure how that's going to work because I've never used it before, but you know, let's give it a whirl. If you don't try, you're never going to find out. So I'm just mixing that in with some standard compost. Hopefully, as the years progress, I'll gradually build up sufficient of my own that I'll never need to do this again. Buy compost, I mean. I've certainly managed to get quite a bit of my own last year. And again, you'll remember that the raised beds outside, they're predominantly compost that was set down 2 years ago and was finally ready to go out. So we'll see. I've got one full bay left from stuff that was moved out of the 3 beds or bays into one at the back end of last year. That'll be ready to go out at the end of this year, and hopefully with all the grass cuttings, chicken waste, and at the end of the year the leaves from the trees will build up and build up and build up. Anyway, I digress. Let me get these filled up and then we'll get some seed trays filled up and then we'll get something planted. I've filled up some larger containers, or I've partly filled them up, and I've brought in the chitted potatoes that I've had in store in the cabin, so we'll get those dropped in and then get these containers topped off. I won't do all of these because there's way too many right now. I'll probably do 3 and then give it a few more weeks and do 2 or 3 more and so on. right the way through the year, and hopefully we'll end up with not just succession planting but a decent amount of store over winter. I'll do the same as I've done before. I've got some really nice chits on these, and I'll just intersperse them in the container and top up, build my little layers. The trouble with compost in bags, and I've said it a million times, it gets compressed and you have to physically work out the lumps. So as with everything else, it takes way longer than you think. So when you're doing these jobs, if you think it's going to take an hour, just double it. Because it does take way longer than you think it's going to. I'll get these topped up, put another little layer in, so we'll have 2 layers in each bucket. There's only 2 or 3 in each layer, so we're ending up with 5 or 6 potatoes going in, and hopefully 25 or 35 coming out at the end. And that's the plan. And to be fair, each year that passes I am getting better and better results as I learn what works, what doesn't work, how soon I can get away with planting, how late I can get away with planting. And of course after last year, what works when it comes to storing them. So just keep plodding away at it. If you haven't tried already, try. It's not rocket science. And I think you'll be very pleased with the end results. There's nothing better than the feeling you get when you open up your container, bucket, or dig up your raised bed and you've got all this food looking at you. It's quite satisfying. Well, the potatoes are done, so it's time for the carrots. Another 6 buckets to follow on from the 12 that's already planted. So same as before, I'll just sprinkle these over. And then cover them up with a bit of compost. I've given the buckets a bit of a watering, just so that there's some moisture in the soil. And once I've covered them over with a little top dressing, I'll do the same again, just sprinkle a bit of water on. Well, the potatoes are planted, the carrots are planted. I've made up some seed trays and we're going to go for a bit more planting. We've got cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, lettuce. So I'm going to get these planted up, and I'm tempted to put these in the covered raised bed in the garden room. I figure it'll give them a bit more heat in there than it will in the polytunnel. Having said that though, the polytunnel is absolutely roasting, and I've taken off the hat and jacket. I'm tempted to take the sweatshirt off as well because it is absolutely roasting in here. Just cover these over. And as usual, I'll give them a little watering in, a little dusting of compost on top, just to make sure that they are firmed in. Because this is fresh out the bag compost, so it will settle quite a bit. Okay, broccoli. These seeds aren't too bad in terms of size. A couple more. And there we go. Broccoli. I was in two minds as to whether or not to do this year. I've not had fantastic results with broccoli, to be fair, so I'm trying a different variety this year. My main problem isn't the seed germination, although so far this year it's been quite poor. My main problem is pests. Butterflies and bloody pigeons. Even really early on in the year, last year, I was having problems with butterflies. I don't know where they'd all come from because the temperature wasn't particularly hot. But loads of problems with butterflies, and later on in the year, bloody slugs. But you just have to keep persevering. Mother Nature will do what she does, and there's not a great deal you can do about it. So that's cauliflower, and finally lettuce. In all honesty, this is more for the chickens than it is for me. I do like lettuce, but I'm not a huge salad person. If you can hear that wind on the polytunnel, I'm fairly sure you will. It's really quite strong today. The sun is out, and inside the polytunnel it's absolutely roasting. But outside that wind is actually quite cool. So it's quite deceiving. In here I'm sweating to death. And as soon as I walk outside I freeze to death. Anyway, gonna get these watered and given a little dusting of compost on top. And I think I'll move these into the garden room in that covered raised bed. Spread out my planting a bit. Well, that's the lettuce, cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage in this covered raised bed. And I couldn't resist. I've just popped a little tray of borage in there as well, so we'll get that closed up. Hopefully they'll thrive in there. You can hear that wind. It's shocking. Anyway, it's about time for me to pack up and get off home. Well, that's it for another day. A shame about the weather today. It keeps threatening like it's going to rain, but it's just a bluff. It isn't. The forecast also says it isn't or shouldn't be. Raised beds are looking nice now. They've had a tidy up. Nice to see stuff coming out of the ground. The onions and the garlic and the strawberries. Can't believe how many dandelions we've got. I don't know if you'll pick it up on the video or not. Look at all these. This field is, as it was last year, turning into a sea of dandelions, which is really good because the bees will be out in force and they'll be loving all of this just at the right time. There's a little bit of blossom coming on the hedge line by the beehive as well, and a couple of other places, so this should be nice for them. They'll have all the advantage of the dandelions out for the next few days, and by that time this hedge should be in full bloom as well, so plenty of food for them. They are all out now rather than congregating around the entrance to the hive like they were this morning. They're busy little bees out foraging, doing what they should be, so that's really nice to see. Busy, busy, busy. I don't know how many's in there, but it's hundreds. And they just keep getting that little waft of sunshine, which is helping them to warm up as well. Anyway, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're staying safe and well and enjoying your weekend. That's it for me. Off back home, have a little shower, have a little rest and try and get this video uploaded.
Well, that's it for this video. I hope there was something in there that was of interest to you. If you did like the video, please do click on the like button. Also feel free to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. As always, I welcome any comments, questions or suggestions you might have. Just feel free to leave them in the comments section below. But for now, thanks for watching and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.